I was born in Angola in 1981, 6 years after we gained our independence from Portugal, and 6 years into a bloody civil war that was the last battleground of the Cold War. That war will go on until I was 21. I'm the oldest of 5 siblings. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. My parents separated when I was 2, and they both work regular 9 to 5, so I spend most of my time with my grandmother. She's the most important person in my life and still an inspiration to all of us today. She's 96 years old. Growing up, my siblings and I had no idea that we lived in this one-party socialist state. I mean, of course, I saw things, but I guess I was just too young to understand why certain things were the way they were. Like, what were all these Russians and Cubans doing all around? It was puzzling. The continuation of war, power cuts, and everything that was bad, well, they just blamed it on the rebels. When communism finally fell, the change was very abrupt. Fortunately for me, my parents have always encouraged me to think outside the box, to ask the hard questions and find my own answers. I also come from a long line of free thinkers and rebels. My political awakening came when I started listening to this local hip-hop group called Filhos da Laeste. They were unapologetically political and utterly fearless. It was very quick to see our party state, the MPLA, and its leader, José Eduardo dos Santos, as a problem. The Arab Spring was a turning point. Seeing people power topple long-lasting dictators in North Africa truly inspired us. Shortly thereafter, I was taking part in organizing the first mass protests of our own, calling for dos Santos to go. And although we were systematically detained, beaten, and viciously attacked, we managed to make Angolans less afraid of armed police and planted a seed in their minds about fighting for their rights. In 2015, the party state came after us, after I and 16 other activists organized reading sessions and discussions on Gene Sharp's book, From Dictatorship to Democracy. Somehow they felt we were preparing a revolution or a coup d'etat, so they arrested us. They drove me to a maximum security prison 100 kilometers away from the capital with a bag over my head and threw me in a 2x2 isolation cell where sometimes I went 47 hours without seeing sunlight. Now, it was plain to see they were trying to break me, so I wouldn't just give them the pleasure. I got more defiant instead. At first, I refused to eat their food, and after 3 months, I started a hunger strike to protest the illegality of our detention. On the 19th day, I was hospitalized, and I really thought I was going to die. So I wrote a letter asking not to be brought back in case I went into a coma. That's when I realized that my hunger strike and our case was the talk of the town, the country, and the world. For the first time, people who never opened their mouths about human rights were talking. International pressure really made a difference here. Everyone from the US State Department, the EU, the Vatican, and international human rights organizations, they all apply pressure to the government. Hearing the news from the inside really emboldened us to find creative ways of protesting our imprisonment and sham trial. Because the world never stopped talking, we were released after a year. Less than a year after our release, dos Santos, who had been the sitting president for 38 years, finally announced his resignation. And it was a relief. But we knew that his hand-picked successor, João Lourenço, will never relinquish the status quo, and he didn't. But for a brief moment, though, it just felt like we were a tiny bit freer. I mean, the guy even invited activists for a meeting at the presidential palace. But that moment of opening passed, and the party state is now back to its old devious ways, or using lawfare to stifle free thinking, making protests more difficult, restricting NGOs and criminalizing dissent. Angola doesn't make the headlines often, even though we are constantly ranking among the worst countries in the world for corruption, malnutrition, education, infant mortality, you name it. We don't have a war going on, yet people are suffering as much as in more well-known failed states. But this is a failed state by design. Since 1975, they have squandered the country's wealth because the party state sees fit to use the people's money on rather expensive and stupid publicity stunts. In March, Will Smith came to Angola and met with our dictator to promote the country as a destination for tourism and the film industry and, help me out here, the 2026 Electric Race Boat World Championship? Whatever the F that is. Last year, they spent $6 million to bring Messi and the Argentinian team for one football match. Now, I know that countries have little to no incentive to help change the status quo. Matter of fact, governments rather keep on profiting off Angolans. American and Chinese multinationals are buying Angola's oil and diamonds, but 50% of the wealth generated goes to service the $30 billion debt to China because our leaders sold us out. While governments profit, Angolans pay the price. We see children as young as 7 going through trash bins in the streets, scavenging for food. Children dying of preventable diseases in public hospitals, and over 7 million people face food insecurity. That's 20% of the population. Nevertheless, there are small things we can do to help improve the lives of people. We'll hold elections next year. Yes, everyone knows they're badly rigged. They don't reflect the will of the people. At Mudei, we are working to mobilize citizens to overcome their own apathy and get control of their destiny. We are trying to force the hand of the government to open up the electoral process and make it transparent. We believe the existence of community radio stations could help achieve that goal. We could use money, of course, to help pay volunteer lawyers we work with so they can come to the rescue when people get arrested or abducted just for taking part in the electoral process. And notice, I said when, not if, because it happened before, it happened last time, and damn sure will happen again. Last but not least, we could use journalists taking an interest in Angola, because we've witnessed firsthand, I've witnessed firsthand, the impact of international exposure. We may not be able to change the party state just yet, but I still have hope for Angola. Thanks for having me, Oslo. Remember, let's end all wars, free Palestine, and please, 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 don't be Will Smith, y'all. Peace, I'm out.